ahí!
Esto es abuso de autoridad. Yo no hice nada. Yo no hice nada.
¡Alto ahí! ¡No te muevas! Pon las manos en la espalda.
¡Bajen esa cámara!
Las manos atrás, donde pueda verlas. ¡Atrás!
Chicos malos, ¿ahora qué van a hacer? Soy Phil en Toronto. Este es un episodio de villanos en Cuarto de Antigravedad. Los sospechosos son inocentes hasta que se compruebe lo contrario en la corte.
Soy Nick en Nueva York. Tenemos villanos desde el Guasón hasta Lex Luthor y Doomsday. Y Becky en San Francisco, quien no es exactamente una villana, pero...
Así es. Al menos ya no es el caso. Luché contra la ley y la ley ganó. En este episodio de Cuarto de Antigravedad.
¡Cuarto de Antigravedad!
Todo el mundo compra tiras cómicas por los héroes, pero ¿qué hay de los villanos? Pueden hacer lo que quieran y no tienen que luchar todo el tiempo contra el crimen. Díganme, ¿quién ve a Batman solo por Batman? Está el Acertijo, el Dos Caras, Gatúbela, el Guasón. ¡Ja! Y es lo mismo en las tiras cómicas. ¡Auch! ¡Auch! ¡Ah! Aquí no hay espacio para las piernas. Los primeros villanos en las tiras cómicas eran criminales callejeros o nazis, pero los lectores deseaban rivales más dignos para los héroes. Así, a finales de los 30 y principios de los 40, surgieron personajes como Lex Luthor y el Guasón para obstaculizar a Superman y a Batman. Más tarde, Marvel creó villanos únicos como Fin Fan Fum y el Buitre, y así como los antiguos que se convirtieron en clásicos como el Doctor Pulpo. Las versiones malvadas de los héroes también son populares como el Veneno, que es la contraparte alienígena del Hombre Araña. Hoy en día sujetos como el Transgresor, Doomsday y Apocalipsis representan una nueva raza de villanos superpoderosos que le brindan a los héroes un reto en su carrera. Dennis O'Neil es escritor y editor de Batman, y él sabe más acerca de los bativillanos que nadie más. Y esto es lo que nos dijo.
You should work just as hard on the bad guy as the good guy, and if you have to stint somewhere, it's probably better to stint on the good guy because they're going to be rooting for him anyway. With Batman, when I started writing him in the 60s, I inherited a whole lot of villains. I mean, decades of great characters. Two-Face, who's maybe the second best Batman villain, he wears his problem on his face. He is a man divided against himself. Half of him is this very rigidly moralistic district attorney, a guy who believes completely in the law, and half of him is a vicious criminal. He is not reconciled the two halves, so he allows a coin, one side of which is messed up, to make his decisions for him. We can all identify with that in some way, and at the same time, he so directly opposes everything Batman stands for that he's an almost ideal enemy. Catwoman is amoral, or rather, she lives by her own moral code. She decides what's lawful and what's not. One of the things that she's decided is that she loves being a thief. It's the greatest kick in the world for her, and so that's what she does. She is not a vicious character in the way the Joker might be. If she likes you, she'll be very kind to you, and she will not ever willingly hurt anyone. However, if you cross her or if you hurt a friend of hers, she will exact due and terrible revenge on you, and not lose a second's sleep over it. Ra's al Ghul is more of an idealist than Batman, but his idealism happens to encompass probably the destruction or death of 90% of the people on the planet to save the planet. Batman feels that nothing is that certain. The planet is not that certainly doomed, and in any case, no conceivable good could outweigh the evil of destroying so many lives. Well, without any doubt, the Joker has been Batman's greatest enemy. Most of the other antagonists the Batman goes against have at least some spark of humanity. There's some little flicker of compassion within them somewhere. Totally untrue of the Joker. He doesn't care about anybody's suffering. He doesn't care about his own suffering. He just doesn't care. Insofar as trying to psych out the Joker, he can't do it. Nobody can. We're saying that 2 psychiatrists tried to do that, and both of them are now themselves in mental institutions. A lot of superhero comics in the 40s had villains whose only real crime was trying to find out the superhero's secret identity. Take away the secret identity and these guys wouldn't be doing anything villainous. But nowadays, it's not enough for a villain to be the guy that the good guy doesn't like. He has to be created as real a character as is possible.
La Legión de Supervillanos es un clásico grupo de chicos malos editado por Casey Carlson en DC Comics. Y aquí está él.
Fatal Five is a collection of probably the most incorrigible characters of their individual planets, the biggest and baddest of their race. They were originally brought together by the Legion of Superheroes when the Legion couldn't face a menace to the entire galaxy that was greater than even their combined powers, called the Sun Eater, a being that was going to engulf the entire sun. It was suggested to the Legion that they draw these 5 characters in from these planets to help them with sheer power, not realizing how evil the characters actually were. The Fatal Five are Validus, a character with massive strength and lightning powers of lightning bolts that come out of his exposed brain. Tharok, who's a mastermind, a criminal genius on the power of Lex Luthor, encased in a half-human, half-robot body. The Executioner with his atomic axe, which can slice through anything. Then we have Mano, who has an incredible death touch. And the final member of the 5 is the Empress, who's probably the most evil and sinister assassin in the known universe. They all have different motivations, and that's part of what makes them interesting and how they work in an interesting group dynamic and things. Some of them are just, out for taking over a world because they think it would be cool, but others are interested in scientific expertise and political power, and in the case of Validus, he's just mindless and he just likes to break things. A lot of the more classic villains came about by a single incident. It was something bad that happened to them, and if it would have gone the other way, they could have become, on the side of the angels. Coming up in the future of the Legion, we're going to be continuing to investigate bringing back some of the classic Legion villains that people haven't seen for a while. The foremost of which is Mordru, the evil sorcerer. The other major villain would be the Time Trapper. Well, any supervillain dream team has to include Darkseid, no question. In terms of the Legion, any of the Fatal Five characters, either collectively or individually. I know it would probably never happen, but I would love to see the Joker take on the Legion. And I know this kind of thing makes Denny's skin crawl, because when you talk about science fiction and Batman, and the 2 genres don't mix at all, but it's a dream.
El Guasón es uno de los villanos clásicos de Batman, y Mark Hamill hace la voz para la serie animada. Es un hombre ocupado.
You know, it's almost criminal how much fun I had playing a villain on The Flash.
The trickster.
It's the ultimate playground. I had a trickster mobile, I had a flashy costume, I had a sidekick. I was embarrassed to take a paycheck. One thing that's great about villains is they're super egos. Joker's probably the all-time villain in comic books. Again, he has this demented genius and a real grudge against Batman, so that helps. Captain Hook and Peter Pan's awfully tempting, because I like the idea of being able to terrorize children and get my comeuppance. It's something very dramatically satisfying about that. I think sometimes the villains are more interesting than the heroes only because there's so many flaws to play, and because they provide the danger to the character that the audiences want to succeed, which is the hero. Having played a hero, Luke, against Vader, you see the thankless role of the hero. I mean, he's always stalwart and serious and no monkey business or fooling around, and the villains can be just terribly self-indulgent and over the top. So yeah, probably I'd have to give the nod to villainy, but only in the fictional context.
Ta-ta for now.
Esto nos lleva a nuestra encuesta antigravitacional con la pregunta: ¿quién creen que sea el mejor supervillano? Señor policía.
El mata animales.
My favorite comic book animated villain is Hexadecimal because she is scared.
My favorite supervillain would be Catwoman. Anybody with claws and a tail, that's the way to go.
Number one comic book villain, the Joker, the master of all gimmicks, that's why. Remember, the Joker is number one.
Wile E. Coyote, because he is relentless and he's totally ruthless, but he never wins, and so you gotta love him for trying all these years.
Después de esto, Phil les hablará de videojuegos. Conocerán a un artista y Magneto escapa para provocar un caos otra vez. O ya es de los buenos. Nunca lo recuerdo.
Cuarto de Antigravedad.
Aquí está Phil con el policía virtual. Él es la ley.
CD-ROM Atón.
Esta semana hablaremos del policía virtual para el Sega Saturn. Escuchen esto. Es la adaptación perfecta del juego original. Pero viene en dos versiones. La que ven tiene el paralizador. Sí, pero también pueden comprar en el juego con el CD donde usan el control y mueven la mira en la pantalla. Completamente inútil. Si van a comprar el juego, compren la edición de lujo que viene con el paralizador. En cuanto al juego, es una adaptación perfecta del original. Pero cuando se dan cuenta que no están metiendo monedas a la máquina, es más sencillo que como era en la máquina. De hecho, en 2 horas terminé el juego, lo que me agradó mucho. Pero el detalle es que querrán jugarlo una vez tras otra, una y 1000 veces. Tiene varios niveles de dificultad: sencillo, normal y difícil. Pueden combinar las continuaciones y muchas otras opciones donde solo le tiran a blancos. Tengo que decirles que el policía virtual es un juego excelente. Le doy 4,5 de 5. ¿Por qué le quito medio punto? Porque, como dije, es sencillo cuando no meten monedas, y también porque el paralizador no encaja en mi funda.
Atención, policías de cómputo. Este otoño, Tom Clancy y Big Entertainment exhibirán La Fuerza de la Red, el Departamento Federal de Investigación Criminal en Internet. Max está en los proyectos de Paramount. Sam Kidd, el creador de Max, está escribiendo los libretos de una versión en vivo del dibujo animado de MTV y tira cómica de Image. La ciudad Astro regresa. La tira cómica de Kurt Busiek será la guía para el libro de Jim Lee fuera de Image en Homage Comics. El primer número saldrá en agosto.
Sujeto de la investigación.
I grew up in Berkeley, California, and I went to college at UC Berkeley, graduated architecture, 89. I started off drawing a comic strip for my college newspaper, the Daily Californian in Berkeley, California, back in 88, and started doing a comic strip for my college paper back then. Moved to Austin, Texas in 92. I started drawing Too Much Coffee Man shortly after. I guess I moved into comic books originally because it was a cheap way to do film. People always ask me, am I making my living from doing comics? And I guess I am. But yeah, it's basically turned into my livelihood and pretty much my life. It's a lot of work.
No food, no water. What comics would you like on a desert island?
The 3 comics I'd have with me on a desert island are The Watchmen, The Dark Knight, and Detective 27, because when I get off, I'm going to need some cash.
Después de esto, Nick hablará de tiras cómicas y recibirá una dosis de radiación. Oye, en cuanto más se enfada Nick, más fuerte se vuelve.
Cuarto de Antigravedad. Comicopia.
Hola amantes de las tiras cómicas, soy Nick en Cuarto de Antigravedad con Comicopia, un trabajo de 24 horas para traerles las últimas tiras cómicas de tercer grado. Primero tenemos una mujer astuta trazada en tinta. Y no hablo de Demi Moore, hablo de Dart, una serie nueva que relata las aventuras de una persona que apareció en las páginas de Savage Dragon. Dart es una atractiva mujer que lucha contra el crimen con la ayuda de dardos muy precisos. ¡Auch! Este número nos revela más sobre la niñez perturbadora de Dart. Y tiene un nuevo amigo felino que ayuda a Dart a detener un robo y después intenta conseguir su número telefónico. Estas chicas superhéroes nunca tienen tiempo, créanme. Este libro les da vida a las tiras cómicas de Image y le doy 3.8 en la escala antigravedad. Después, la historia de una antorcha esmeralda que... Un momento. Esta es la linterna verde número 73. Aquí continúa la historia de nuestro superhéroe verde, cuando la Mujer Maravilla y la Linterna Verde escapan. ¿O no? Esta historia comienza con los dos casi dioses golpeándose violentamente, pero resulta que todo fue planeado. La pelea fue parte del plan Héroes, la misión de la Linterna Verde por reunir a otros superhéroes y recibir consejo para hacerse un mejor héroe. La Linterna Verde es divertido, es bueno ver que alguien se encargue exclusivamente de asuntos de héroes, y le doy 3.5 en la escala antigravedad. Después... ¡Oh, Dios mío! ¡Marte nos ataca! ¡Corran por sus vidas! ¡Ah! Casualmente, nuestros amigos verdes secuestradores de humanos llevan conociendo a la raza humana algún tiempo. Hay dos tipos de extraterrestres. Uno, los Norrows, quieren conquistar la Tierra. El otro, los Pagis, quieren unirse a los humanos. Los alienígenas llegan pacíficamente a la Tierra, solo para ser asesinados por los humanos como van llegando. De cualquier manera, comienza la guerra. Empieza la destrucción y estamos fritos. Este libro tiene mucha demanda en el mundo de las tiras cómicas. Los alienígenas podrían ser nuestros peores enemigos. Le doy a este libro 4 de 5 en la escala antigravedad. Hasta luego. El último que salga, que apague la luz.
Muchos superhéroes nos han acompañado siglos. ¿Cómo compiten los recién llegados? Fuimos a los estudios Extreme para averiguarlo.
Hi, my name is Matt Hawkins. I'm the editor here at Maximum Press. We all have our dark sides, and sometimes I think we like to visit them. This is Bilal. He's a demon lord, kind of covering the area of New York. He's enormously powerful. He's got enormous, like, superhuman strength. He's the foil for Evangeline, and he has the ability to transform back and forth into a human appearance and a demonic appearance.
Yeah, I think villains have to be crazy because it makes them more unpredictable. And I think that's the fun thing about villains is their unpredictability and that they'll do things heroes won't do. And I think that's why people like them. This is Boltar from our Battlestar Galactica comic. And he's the ultimate Judas. He's betrayed mankind, so he's a great villain. And what we've done is updated him and given him Cylon technology. His arms are cybernetic now.
What we're trying to do is come up with villains that have this long-lasting life with a strong visual image recognition, like in the Seven Deadly Sins in the Evangeline title, we have Wrath, who is this strong, very mean-looking guy. Obviously, he's very physically strong. He's a brute. You have Pride, who is kind of Gastonish-looking, very beautiful, but at the same time kind of villainous with the cleavers and the nails and things like that. You have Gluttony, who looks like this fat, kind of slobbish-looking guy, kind of a gray skin tone. And you have Lust, who's this beautiful woman who seduces people. And you have Greed and Envy, and I think the best visual one of all is Sloth. He's so lazy, he actually recalls the undead, pulls the undead out of the grave here, just to do his bidding because he's too lazy to do it himself. But these characters, I mean, sin is inherently fun. I mean, it has its consequences, and it eventually will come and haunt you. But I think every one of us wants to visit this dark side of ourselves, and this allows you through these books to actually go in and it's escapism form of entertainment and see and visit and see what the dark side would do. I think a villain has to be really much larger than life, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that from us.
Desde luego que de todos los villanos no hay más malo que Doomsday, que siempre será recordado como el villano que derrotó a Superman. Hablamos con el talentoso Dan Jurgens, artista y escritor de este duro villano que en realidad es muy noble cuando lo conoces.
Since 1982, I've been working for DC Comics, where I've done a lot of different things. Warlord, Zero Hour, a little bit of Batman work, a Flash Gordon, a Booster Gold series, and Justice League. But the thing I'm probably best known for is the death of Superman, which was back in 1992. That was the big fight between Superman and the villain known as Doomsday, who actually killed Superman. We thought, just sitting in a room, that it might be real interesting to tell a story about the death of Superman and then everything that would happen after he died. So we planned to do all these sad Superman stories where they would have a funeral for Superman, and his own parents couldn't even come because the world didn't know that Clark Kent was really Superman. And that's what got us interested, was really writing and drawing stories about a world without Superman. When we decided to kill Superman, we knew that we had to have someone very special do it. And at that time, I had also been working on a character who was just the embodiment of sheer, brute, physical force. We didn't even have a name for him yet. That came later. But eventually, he became a character called Doomsday. And from the start, he was probably
our most unique villain in visual terms, and maybe our most unique just because he didn't even talk. He was just rage incarnate. And that was totally different for a Superman comic at the time. So I'm often asked, will we ever see Doomsday again? I don't like to tell secrets out of school, and we don't know for sure, but if I had to bet, I'd definitely bet that he's coming back.
Después de esto escarbaremos en la bolsa del cartero y sacaremos una cabeza humana. ¡Ah!
Cuarto de Antigravedad.
Es hora de leer su correspondencia. Morgan Wessler nos dice que el mejor supervillano es Norman Osborn como el primer fantasma verde. Pero como es un gusano, está empatado entre Deadpool y Diente de Sable. ¡Genial!
Y Dick Casey de América Online nos dice: supe de un juego de cartas de Wildstorm. ¿Es verdad? La respuesta es sí, está a la venta. Es muy bueno y le di 3 puntos de 5. También nos dice:
Phil debería considerar cortarse el cabello.
¡Oh!
La pregunta de esta semana es, ¿de qué está hecho el Soylent Green?
Pueden escribirnos a YTV Canadá, Avenida Jefferson 64, Unidad 18, Toronto, Ontario, Canadá, M6K 3H3, o envíen su correo electrónico a antigravity@ytv.ca, antigravity, y nuestra página electrónica está en http://www.antigrav.com/.
Bien, eso fue todo. Creo que los chicos malos son tan importantes en las tiras cómicas como los héroes.
Desde luego que nada es tan perverso como la fuente de toda la maldad en el planeta.
David Hasselhoff, el peor de los villanos. ¡Corre por sus vidas!